Hello, I am Rhys Wallace, and this is the Cedar Log.
On this week's episode of the Cedar Log, Rhys sits down with longtime scouter Tom Luke and talks about all of his experiences within scouting as a youth and as an adult. So please sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
So could you briefly tell me what your current role is in scouting and any other previous positions or things you've kind of done within scouting?
Sure. So now, as of now, I'm assistant scoutmaster with my son's old troop, 434 in Lanark, Pennsylvania, and also the veteran crew advisor for Crew 434, which we started there a few years ago. And I'm on the committee to both the troop and also the crew, and I'm an advisor for Constellation Chapter in Unami Lodge for the Order of the Arrow. So I also sit on Cradle of Liberty Council camping committee,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm one of the camp masters for the council up at Resica. Well, I guess camp master crews can work Resica or Munster, but I always prefer Resica.
I got you. That's very understandable. That's a lot that you do, so thank you for doing all that.
Sure.
So when did you first join scouting?
So I thought about that after you had told me about the interview. I guess it's about 39 or 40 years ago. I was about 7 years old, around 1980.
Okay.
It was Cub Scouting. So I remember I joined a year late. So I remember I joined and everyone was already like, they had their Bobcat or something like that, and I had the opportunity. They let me do the Bobcat and Wolf in the same year or something like that. I just remember catching up. So, yeah, it's not like it was a lot, but it was good. So and then so I went through Cub Scouting and then right straight into scouting.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
And then we kind of already established that you're a lodge member. So when did you take your ordeal? Like roughly?
So I did my ordeal August 15th of 1986,
Okay.
and then I did my brotherhood in August 27th of 1987. So I'm sorry, my ordeal was September 15, 86, and my brother was August 27th of 87.
Okay. So you had a few years in the lodge before you joined camp staff.
Yeah. I was I served as a chapter chief. I think that was before I was camp staff. It was what is now Conestoga. Back then it was called Keystone Chapter.
Oh, okay.
It was Valley Forge Council,
Mm-hmm.
and they called it Keystone Chapter. And I was fortunate enough to be a chapter chief, and my advisor was a fresh, a 21 or 22-year-old John Nawn, who had been the council. The lodge chief,
Mm-hmm.
and then aged out and became an advisor for my chapter. It was very fortunate for me.
Okay. Seems like you had a good arrangement there.
Yeah, it was a good time. We did some good stuff.
So what caused you to join the Resica camp staff? Was there an influence from the lodge, perhaps?
I remember it like it was yesterday. It wasn't from the lodge, really. I was up at Resica with my troop, and
Mhm.
every year we stayed at the Chippewa campsite,
Okay.
and we were up at camp, and I had such a good time one year. And literally, as I was in my dad's car, as we're driving out of camp, passing the camp office, which is now where the trading post is.
Mm-hmm.
That used to be the camp office. Driving past it, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go see if I could be on staff and stay here all summer next summer. So I jumped out of the car, ran up, and I gave the guy who was the I think it was the shooting sports director at the time, happened to be in there, and he gave him my name and number, and he
Okay.
wrote it down on a piece of scrap paper. And I remember thinking, well, I guess something happens, it happens. And then that December, I got a call for an interview. I was like, oh, wow, okay.
There you
And
go.
I was hired, yeah. So,
Okay. So
yeah.
it was kind of just I guess the location itself kind of just made you want to do it.
Yeah, just had so much fun. I was like, boy, I want to do this all summer. I didn't want to go home.
I can
Yeah.
understand that. I had a similar thing for joining muster staff. So
Okay, yeah,
I can definitely understand that kind of feeling.
I did, yeah.
So what positions did you hold while you were on the staff?
Okay, so my first year there was 1990,
Hmm.
and I was hired as a pool staff assistant, and I basically, I was a lifeguard at the pool. I remember for almost a week, probably about 3 or 4 days, I went on a canoe trip with a troop from Delaware that year. They needed a lifeguard to go with them, so I was fortunate enough to go with them. And they were doing a Delaware, trip, canoe trip. So
Hmm.
I went with them, had a blast, and they kind of adopted me as an honorary member of their troop, which was great for years to come. Every Christmas, like the weekend or two before Christmas, I think it was, they had a camping trip as a troop, and they
Hmm.
would always invite me and like one or two other adopted members,
Hmm.
and we would go and just have a blast. So it was like fortunate. But yeah, so I worked at the pool that year. 91 and 92, I came back as the lake director. And
Okay.
then 93 and 94, I was the cope director.
Oh, okay. You got up the chain there.
Yeah, yeah, it was good. I worked on the ceremonies team. I had a lot of fun, lifelong friends that I was on the ceremonies teams with, and another thing I remember doing is the flag detail. Colors in the morning and the evening.
Yeah.
My last 2 years there, I guess I was the guy in charge of the flag, so I was the guy that did the report, and then I would report to the camp director. Everyone was present or something. Yeah, a lot of fun.
Yeah, I do a similar thing at Musser with the wall. So
It's
yeah,
just
that's a lot of
one
fun.
of those things you'll never forget,
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. It is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So then I'm assuming you worked at Lake Roger then as the director.
Yeah. Yeah. And the lakefront at Resica was on the other side of the lake back then. It was on the lake trail side
Okay.
where the Dan Beard does their camp out now. That was
Mm-hmm.
the lakefront. There was an old shack basically
Okay.
propped up on like cinder blocks, and then there was a straight straight wooden dock that went out from the water there. It was good. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Mhm.
So who were the camp directors during your time? Did you have like one, several?
Yeah. So my first year there, I was on the pool staff, and a guy named Bill Davis was the camp director. Didn't know him too well. I was the new guy, and he was the big shot camp director.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and then for the next, I think, 3 years, it was Tom Mesco, and I became good friends with him. He kind of brought me into the upper fold, the senior staff. I was a director at the time, and then even during the off season, he allowed me to have a lot of input. We did a lot of planning,
Okay.
and he brought me into the camp mastering fold and everything. So, and then in 1994, it was Chuck Watterson, who was a good friend of mine, and of course, all along, he kind of moved up from program director to camp director when Tom Mesco moved on.
Okay.
And actually, I think Tom Mesco then became the reservation director. It was a weird thing there. So that Firestone was in full program,
Mm-hmm.
and I guess for whatever reason they needed a reservation director. Each camp had Big Springs had the director, and
Mhm.
Firestone had a camp director, and then Tom Mesko was eventually the reservation director.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha. So then, do you remember the Rangers at all?
Yes, I do. Okay, boy, the names. I know one guy's name was Mark Mullen. He's a big burly guy, long beard. His family lived there. His wife and I think 2 kids. They were just wonderful people. This guy was an amazing. He was like an artist. If you could call a mechanic or so, I don't know what you would call him, but like the best thing I could think of is like a blacksmith where, if something needed to be fixed, he would either fix it or create a part like out of nowhere, literally banging on an anvil, until he had the part that would fix whatever it was. I mean, he was amazing. But his name was what did I just say? Mark Mullen. Yeah, Mark Mullen. And he was there long after I left. I think he was there until the early 2000s. And at one point they had an assistant ranger too, a younger guy. Can't remember his name. Might have been Dave. Yeah. But they had an assistant ranger.
Sounds like he was one seriously skilled dude. If he could do all that.
He was amazing. He was impressive.
Let's see. Oh, so I guess kind of one of the bigger questions. So, could you tell me more about like Firestone, Fawn Run, and Big Springs? Because I know a lot of times the other 2 were operating and then not operating, and in certain programs were under the other 2, and I'm just trying to get a feel for what that was like.
So, Great Bend was a camp at Resica as well. That was a camp out in the far side of past Big Springs towards the Fossil Rock, trail. That was the 2-week camp, and they closed that camp down in the mid to late 80s. I would guess about 85 to 87, sometime around there was their last year. And so when I started working there, it was like the abandoned, overgrown camp. And a lot of the campsites that we use today for Big Springs are really Great Bend campsites. Fawn Run, even Two Feathers, a lot of them, Bear Paw, a lot of them weren't even open. I remember when we opened Two Feathers, and then even later opened Fawn Run, or not Fawn Run, I forget the name of it. It's right past Fawn Run, Two Feathers. Anyway, a lot of them were Great Bend camp. Is it you? Anyway, so Big Springs was the 1-week camp, and then across the road at Firestone, they had a full staff, smaller staff than Big Springs. They were a 1-week camp, but they had the program where the troops would bring their own tents and set them up. I do believe they had like an Adirondack or 2 in each of the campsites, but it was mostly they camped in their own tents. They were supplied with the food, but they would cook their meals in their campsite and then go to the different program areas for program. They used their own lakefront, Lake Ann, for both swimming and also boating, merit badges, and recreation. They had their own shooting sports staff and everything. And we would train during staff week. They would come and train with us most of the week, and then we always did 1 day of training out there where they could host us, and they'd host us all the way straight through till dinner and dark. So it was a way for the 2 staffs to kind of get together, and But other than that, we didn't see a lot of them. So.
Okay. So I'm guessing Fawn Run wasn't.
Yeah. So Fawn Run was active. I believe it was run out of Firestone, and they had 1 or 2 staff members. But it was still running, and basically what it was is they would go a group or a troop would essentially hike or paddle Resica for the week, and they would have places where they would have to be by a certain time where their food would be brought to them, food and water supplies or whatever. And they would also, end up at the lake, and we would be at the lake, and as a lake staff member, and Fawn Run would come in. We would have a heads up. Hey, the Fawn Run group is going to be coming up for free boating, open boating or something like that. If they get there and it's before open boating, as long as you have enough lifeguards, you can let them do whatever they need. And we always, there was always, because they're on a different schedule. It depended on how long it took them to do a mountain.
Yeah.
So they were, but it was fun. They were good. It wasn't large groups, but they were fine. And the same thing is in Cope. We would try and schedule them as a Cope director. We would try and get them to come to the Cope course later in the week, maybe when we didn't have Cope going on normally, and we would run them through a Cope program. So,
Gotcha. So Fawn Run was more of like a specialty program then?
Yeah, it was offered. It was more of like a high venture kind of a thing. I think some troops preparing for maybe Philmont or something like that would do it. Yeah. Although I don't know how much you would call it like Philmont prep, because I do remember they would like drive the food out to wherever they were going to expect it to be. So you weren't carrying all your food and water. So, but they did get to do their shooting sports and the Cope and the boating and stuff like that. It was just they hiked around and camped wherever,
Gotcha. Okay. Sounds like a fun program, actually.
Yeah.
So was your boating trip on the Delaware like a part of program at Big Springs, or was that something?
No, that was part of Big Springs, yeah.
Okay.
And I believe they still do it.
It sounds like Panorama.
Yeah. So it was probably the beginnings of Panorama, right? But they just called it, I guess before your troop got to camp, you would notify the camp director, hey, by the way, from Tuesday to Thursday, we're going to be on the water. And, we would drive the troop and the canoes to Dingman's Ferry, drop them off, and then say, okay, we'll see you on Thursday morning at 9 at whatever place, So, and there was no cell phones or anything back then, so you just were there.
Yeah. Alrighty.
Sure.
So then what was your experience like on the Resica staff?
Oh, it was amazing. The time of my life. I've had a lot of jobs, and some amazing jobs, but I always consider that to be the best job I ever had. Yeah. And I have lifelong friends that I met and still hang out with, and, still see.
Gotcha. And then do you have any particular memories that you cherish the most from your time there, or?
Yeah, so I remember working at the lake. We had the lake regatta one year.
Okay.
That was like the camp-wide game.
Oh, okay.
The idea was to get everyone to the lake, because I guess the year before, maybe in the evals, too many people were like, oh, we never got to the lake. It's too far out. So it was almost like, let's get everyone to the lake. So that was we did our camp-wide game on Wednesday at like lunchtime, basically. And it got everyone up to the lake, and we did, all kinds of different aquatics races and water races and this and that. It was fun. I also remember, the pool carnival. We would have a pool carnival one year, and maybe even a couple of years we did a pool carnival. And it was just, some of the games were just so fun. The kids were so into it. What else? I had just an amazing time doing ceremonies teams. We had a good ceremonies group. Let's see, what else? So one year our camp-wide game was called the Medieval Quest, and it was kind of fun. Yeah, where knights and like archers and stuff like that. It was good. It was really interesting. Everyone had there was a bunch of different clues to find different things, and it was neat. The interesting thing is, so every Friday night, for all the years I worked there, it was like the big dinner.
Mm-hmm.
It was like a big turkey feast, turkey stuffing, vegetables, the whole thing. It was like a Thanksgiving dinner. And the turkey came out, a full turkey on a tray. And Friday night was staff waiter night. So back then, the staff didn't sit separately in the dining hall.
Mm-hmm.
Staff sat amongst the tables. So a troop goes in, and if they have, 8 kids or whatever, they always have to leave one empty seat at each table for a staff member. And then they would all go in, and then the staff would be invited into the dining hall, and they'd have to find the empty seats and sit wherever. And on Friday night, it was a staff time to waiters. So the staff would be assigned a table to a waiter. They'd bring out the big turkey. And I remember during staff week, one of the training things was how to carve a turkey. Because, you're 16, 17 years old, you never carved a turkey, So we would actually have to show you how you carve a turkey. That's how I learned to carve a turkey. But it was fun. It was a good time.
Yeah, that does sound actually like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It's had some good campfire games, and I can imagine carving a turkey for campers. That must have been every week.
Yeah.
That must have been interesting.
Especially when you don't know what you're doing.
Exactly.
Yeah, it was good.
How large would you say a summer season was back then? Like rough numbers, if you can, or just like.
Yeah. Well, so numbers, I don't know. I remember we did 7 weeks plus a staff week, and I do remember a year or possibly 2 when they added an 8th week, and I think it just didn't work out for some reason. I think the numbers were so big that they tried to spread it out by adding a week, but you lose your college-bound kids late in the summer, and you can't start too early because all your high school kids are still in school, but for some reason the calendar worked out one year and they added an 8th week. They might have tried to do it a second year. But the numbers in camp, I can't remember. They're nothing like they are now. I mean, they're probably close to a half of what they are now because they have so many more campsites open. The dining hall is about 3 times as large as it used to be, So, and the camp staff is much bigger now. Yeah.
Okay. How many people were on staff, would you say, like when you worked?
It got bigger every year. But I'm gonna guess. Oh boy, I have pictures somewhere, and I've been looking for them. I can't find them, but I'm gonna guess maybe 60 some in 1990. But by 94, it was over 100. Yeah. So.
That's quite the growth in a few years.
Yeah. Oh, it grew. Yeah, the camp grew.
And then that's kind of a good segue to from when you were on staff, what major facility differences or program differences do you see? I mean, I'm sure there's a lot just because I feel like in the past 10 years they've done so much, but.
Sure, yeah. Well, so the pool is different. It's in the same place. It was essentially the same size, but it's a different pool. We didn't have the big high fence. It was only a 4-foot fence. And we didn't have the slide. But the lakefront, like I said, was on the other side of the lake. So they rebuilt that and put that out there. Where the lakefront is now, there were all kinds of blueberry patches back there. And it would not be uncommon to see a bear up there eating blueberries, maybe like early in the morning before the campers would even come up. Like, oh, there's a bear. Yeah. So what else? So where sports is now, next to the pool, that was when I first started there. There was nothing there. It was empty space. And then they built it as handicraft. Handicraft
Okay.
was there when it was a brand new building. And then, and then I guess eventually they turned it into sports. There was no sports program back then. We didn't have a STEM center. STEM, I don't even think was a thing.
Yeah.
They offered. I do believe they offered like a ham radio badge, but they held that in like the camp office where the ham radio was set up. You only had a few people take that. But other than that, the facility is much the same. We used to use the Great Bend dining hall's coolers to keep store extra food that would be quick to get to, like ice cream sandwiches for dessert or something like that for dinner. They would bring them down a day early from there to Big Springs Dining Hall. But other than that, it's mostly the same. The staff center or the staff campsite is much more packed with tents. There was more space. There was kind of like main roads that you could walk down. And now it's kind of like really narrow space between tents. And we didn't have the frames that they had, the wooden frames for the tents. I mean, we had standard tents and no power. It was everything. You either worked on battery power or you didn't have anything, But the staff showers were there. Showers have changed. Now they're all individual showers. Back then it was like, one big shower room, and it was youth up until a certain time, and then it was adult after that time. So, yeah.
I can feel your pain with that shower situation at Muster. When I first started, we had that exact thing, and we had a sign on the outside that had you pointed the arrow to you for adult, and the staff would have battles and fights and over that, and it would be literally a youth and adult staff were running to get there first so that way they could hold it, and it was a whole thing. So I can feel that pain.
Yeah, and the pool showers were the same thing. There were youth side and an adult side, but they were outdoor showers. There was no roof. It was just they were enclosed but outdoors. So if it was raining, you were rained on while you were taking a shower. But it was, and imagine that, 20 or 30 youth in the shower room and no adults in there, obviously.
Yeah.
Flushing stuff around and flushing stuff down the toilet.
That must have been something.
Yeah.
So,
go ahead.
Are there any staff members that had a particular impact on you while you were there?
Sure. So I'm very good, close friends with a number of guys. My friend Jim Alsman was he started out as a camper, and I think in 1990 or 91, and he won we called it the James E. West Award that we would award to a camper at the end of the week, the Friday night campfire, who we felt embodied the Scout oath and law, and we would invite him back that summer, or if it was the last week, the next summer, to be a CIT. So we invited him back to be a CIT, and he liked it so much, we hired him the next year, and he ended up as the Scoutcraft director for a number of years.
Okay.
Yeah, and then another good friend of mine, Chris Arose, his whole family was on staff at some point, but he was a dining hall steward, we used to call it, and then he ended up working with me at Cope. He was one of my assistants at Cope, and lifelong friend. His father was a doctor, and he had a practice in Philly, and I guess he had the kind of job where he could just take the summer off, and he would work up at Resica as the medical officer all summer. Doc Rose, he was a great guy. Died recently, but he was
I'm sorry.
Yeah, he was a wonderful guy. And then another good friend of mine, Matt Kozak, he came up and he worked when I moved from the lake director to Cope director. He became the lake director, and we were just great friends, lifelong friends. He was the best man at my wedding. So yeah, it was. You never know. You don't realize when you're that young that these people have such an impact on your life. So.
Yeah, it's really good to hear that you have those relationships still like thriving.
Yeah. I still talk to them so regularly. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you kind of have a more unique experience where you have a son and a daughter that serve on the same staff now. So what's that like?
It's surreal. So, and actually, my other daughter Annie worked as a CIT for a couple weeks a couple years ago. So it was like all three of them have been up there, and they just love it so much, especially Megan and Matt. And I can totally I can totally see it that they've definitely been bitten by the bug there, because they just love what they're doing and they want to be part of it all. So I'm so proud of them, all three of them. So yeah, and then of course Matt and Megan are in the OA is like another thing. Like, wow, it's too surreal.
Yeah, there must be a lot of pride and like
it
nice
really is. Yeah, it
Mm-hmm.
was good because even when Matt was a cub, I was a den leader and then the cub master, and everything we would do, Megan and Matt did along with them in the den meetings, at the pack meetings. They even made their Pinewood Derby cars.
Yeah.
Now they couldn't race because they weren't officially part of the pack, right? But we, as much time I spent with making one with Matt, I would spend with the girls making one with them too. And there was a practice track that they always got to race on too. So, but same thing up through scouting. I always think, Megan, with the drive and the enthusiasm that she has, I think if they had opened scouting to girls, 6 or 5 years earlier, I have no doubt in my mind she'd be an Eagle Scout. She just has the drive, enthusiasm, and she's done it all already. There's just no book to sign it off on. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like a lot of families were kind of in that same boat.
Yeah.
I definitely agree with you. Megan, I've only like interacted for every once in a while, mostly like training days and staff parties, but I can definitely see what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So, and then are there any traditions from your time on staff that are no longer done that could be kind of like the James E. West Award you were talking about? Maybe there's particular songs or skits y'all did, or
oh gosh, yeah. So let's see. We used to go rappelling. So when I would run Cope, we would do Monday and Tuesday, and then Wednesday would be rappelling day. It would be just, and we would go on the far side of the falls, the big falls. There's a cliff, and you get to it. You go out on 402, walk up, and then there's a trail to walk in. And it's a beautiful rappelling site. We throw a canvas tarp over the edge of the rocks, to protect the ropes. And it's probably like 2.5 stories. Beautiful site, perfect. There's plenty of room to belay from the bottom and all. I don't know that they do that anymore there. It's a shame. Maybe it's because no one knows it's there. That's one of the things. And let's see what else. I don't know. I miss the turkey feast that they used to do. We used to do a water polo tournament at the pool.
Oh, okay.
It would run from like Monday through Friday, and then it would be like brackets,
Yeah.
And the winning troop would play the staff Friday, like after open swim, like during that kind of break before, flags and all. So it was kind of a neat thing, just another thing. It would be like 10-minute long games or something like that. So every troop would get a chance. was nice. Yeah, I missed seeing the staff waiting. Oh, you know what is one thing I didn't. I wonder why they don't do it. We used to have an international scout every year on staff, and he would come from some other country. We had one from New Zealand, one from England, one from I think like Thailand. It was neat. Yeah, you trade patches with them, and they'd work on staff like a regular staff member. And we would fly their flag with the American flag. So you'd have the American flag, the state flag, and then also, the flag of New Zealand or something. It was neat. You learned a lot about different cultures that way. Yeah. So I always wonder why they stopped doing that, but yeah, things have come a long way. Like I said, we didn't have cell phones. There was a phone booth outside the camp office.
Okay.
And I would have to call home once a week just to check in. Can you imagine calling home once a week? That's it. But I remember I was in the dining hall. I was actually leading a song in the dining hall, and someone came up to me and said, "There's a phone call for you at the camp office." I was like, "What are you talking about?" They're like, "You got to go take this phone call." I'm like, "Now?" I'm like in the middle of this song. So I run up to the camp office, and that's how I found out my niece was born. My sister had a baby, and I'm like, oh my gosh, But it was weird. It's just like nowadays, you're sitting at the dining hall at dinner, and you can text mom or call,
I don't know. I think there's something special when you're that immersed in the camp. I remember my CIT year, I didn't have like a cell phone, or it wasn't like what they are now. It was a very basic one, so I kind of know what you mean. I didn't use it.
You're disconnected. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely I think underrated part of camp to be truly as disconnected as possible and just kind of immersed in your little world.
Yeah.
And then since you were in Valley Forge Council, you were a member of Delmont Lodge then.
Yeah.
Which I didn't know, so that kind of opens up a few questions. So,
sure, absolutely, yeah.
Where did you do your ordeal? At Resica, at Delmont, or?
No, I did my ordeal and brotherhood at Resica. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
It just happened that way because it was a fall weekend I did my ordeal, but it happened to be the Resica weekend. Yeah.
Okay.
I still remember the projects we worked on too. There was a footbridge from down where like the nav is now, and it went across the river.
Okay.
And you can still see the cables are probably hanging.
Yeah.
But, we had, I guess they deemed it was unsafe, so we, as part of my project, we had to peel the planks off of the footbridge, And I just remember so many times we dropped like the hammer or crowbar down into the water, and it's like you can't yell out and be like, "Hey, we dropped it." So you just sit there, and finally the guy would be like, "Why are you working?" And we're like, "Yeah, we dropped it." Just wave your hand. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, I've led a lot of ordeal projects, and that's probably a little nightmarish for me to even think of running.
Yeah, it was good.
Okay.
And I was there for Delmont's, I think it was 75th anniversary. I brought a patch here to show you because it was 1991. I don't know if you can see it here.
Oh yeah, I'm actually
patch.
Yeah.
And it was only out for a certain amount of time, very rare. And then the next year at Resica's 35th anniversary, we had this big like celebration. And you know who Green Bar Bill is? Okay, so Hillcourt Bill, William Hillcourt, he basically wrote like the Scout handbook. I think 3 different versions of it.
Yeah.
And he was invited up for the big celebration. It was big, and he came up and he actually signed. I got him to sign my patch. I don't know if it's picking up on the camera, but you can see the 2 green bars there. It might be too bright. I don't know.
I can see it a little bit now. Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah. And unfortunately, he died about 2 months later.
Yeah, I was about to
He was,
say, yeah.
he was up there in like say August, and he died in November. Yeah, it's very sad. But this is the council patch for the 35th anniversary at Resica.
Oh, that's cool. I haven't seen that before.
Yeah, it was neat. That's good. I don't know if there's anything else that would that would interest you, but I thought you might like to see that stuff.
No, I definitely appreciate that. I'm actually about to trade with a buddy for that same Delmont Flap. I'm trying to start a Delmont.
Oh, the white one?
Yeah.
Oh, they're rare. You can't find them not too many out there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why Delmont's like my next patch set, just because not many people collect it, let alone display it. So
right. Yeah.
And at some point I gotta get in the Resica, so thank you for showing me that CSP.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Now I know to find it.
Right.
So you were a ceremonialist too. So what part did you play, or like which ceremonies did you do?
Okay, so I played Alawatsuki for the pre-ordeal ceremony, and then I was Mateo for the ordeal and brotherhood, which I always considered myself lucky because Mateo has a like a pentameter, like a flow.
Yeah.
And it made it much easier to memorize the lines. There are a lot of lines too, but I memorized them well enough that, 20 years later, I'm watching my son go through it, and
you know it.
I could say the words as I'm watching. I'm like, oh, this is so weird.
No, that's cool though. That's impressive,
right.
Yeah. Okay.
And we had a lot of fun doing it.
Did you know a Mark Reeves while you were in Delmont Lodge?
Reeves?
Yeah, he also worked at Firestone, but I think that was like late 90s, so it's probably, y'all probably missed each other.
Yeah, I don't know Mark Reeves. No, not offhand. I might recognize his face if I saw a picture.
Gotcha, okay. And then, okay, what else was I going to ask? So Delmont Lodge and Unami Lodge merged with the councils in 96.
Yeah.
Kind of just want to, I guess, as a question of what was that kind of like, and then what's your experience now kind of being a former Delmont member, but also like a very proud Unami.
Okay. Yeah, so I can tell you. So when they merged, it was kind of when I was out of the picture. I was still, I would go to like Eagle Scout ceremonies here and there, or the Eagle sponsoring Eagle for the recognition dinner. Other than that, I was kind of out of scouting until my son picked up in Cub Scouts. So I wasn't around for the merger so much. But I will tell you that coming in with my son, and now it's Cradle of Liberty Council, and not just that, it was Unami Lodge, because Unami Lodge, when we were Delmont, was like, oh, wow, Unami. I had some good friends who came from Unami, and it was like, wow, yeah, this is the founding lodge, And in fact, one guy had the Brotherhood knife, was just so ornate. On the bottom end of the hilt was a Unami turtle carved out of it. The whole handle was beadworked and in so ornate detail.
Oh, wow.
And it was dulled down. You couldn't even cut butter with it. But it was a big, long Bowie knife, real metal and all. And when you're running it across a hand, they don't know in the dark if it's, dull or not. They're just, but it was so beautiful. I always wonder what happened to the Brotherhood knife. But, that came from Unami. And so, being on Resica staff, you sing the Resica songs and the campfires. A lot of the campfire songs they sing now are similar, the same. But the one thing I was like shocked the first time I went up, and I guess Megan was on staff, and they were singing the T.I. song, Treasure Island song. And we were like, what? They're singing T.I. song at Resica? Like, That would be like cheering for the New York Yankees in Philadelphia, like,
Yeah.
oh, that's not allowed here. But I get it, we're all the same council now, and TI closed, and a lot of those guys came to work at Resica and all that. It was like, that would be if Resica were singing Kent Rodney's song or something. Like, I
Yeah.
want to do that. So, but
Yeah.
I was always surprised when and I think they still do it. So, other than that, yeah.
So it seems like the experience overall was pretty good, which I'm glad to hear.
Yeah, it was good. It was a lot of fun.
And then there was just the one ceremonial site at Resica, right? It's been like the same one for, I think, since the beginning of the property. Maybe
it very well could be from the beginning. Yeah, it's the only one I've ever known. Yeah,
mm-hmm.
There is a plaque on it that has the year. And I just can't remember what it says. Probably the year it was dedicated or something like that. But that's the only site I ever knew. Yeah, at Resica. Yeah.
And then you've gotten kind of back into the OA and more involved mostly because of Matt joining, or Matt.
Yeah. So I remember going up for 2 or 3 years on it before Matt was elected to the OA. I would go up when Megan was going to her service weekend with the camp staff.
Yeah.
And I would just pay my dues and go up and just work there as regular OA guy.
Yeah.
Just because you miss it, you want to get back into it and all that. And then when Matt was elected, I was like, oh wow, this is great. You take a bigger part.
Yeah, I have to say, I definitely remember seeing you around before I remember seeing Matt around.
Yeah. I remember the one weekend I was there and Megan was with the camp staff. I was the only person from Constellation there. I think there were 2 or 3 other people, but they were doing the ordeal. So, when we did the colors, I was like literally the only person standing there. I'm like, yeah, it's me again. I'm still here.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But you guys have a pretty strong chapter now.
Yeah, it's turned around in the last few years. Yeah, we've done some good stuff. So we had some strong leaders. Yeah. So it helps. Yeah.
I'm trying to think of any other last questions I have. I mean,
you look through the thing.
Oh, that's what I forgot. So Resica's 35th was when you were on camp staff. So could you tell me what the celebration was like?
It was amazing. I believe it was in August. It was on like a weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to say it was like Family Day weekend.
Okay.
But they had like big wigs come in from, I don't know if it was from National, but maybe, back then I didn't know much about it all, but there were big, head honchos and from everywhere. And we ran a little bit of program for people, visitors and all. So we opened the pool and I think they did some rifle range stuff but it was huge. Like I said, Green Bar Bill and some other big shots came and talked. I can't remember his name. It was someone else did his favorite song in the dining hall. It was like bananas, coconuts, and grapes, and we were like, okay. But apparently that was like his song. He was the guy who was like 100 years old, But it was fun. It was amazing. It was good. I was glad to be part of it.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Cedar Log. If you or someone you know would like to be a part of the Cedar Log, please feel free to reach out to us at history@unamilodge.org. And remember, pay your dues, stay safe, and enjoy.